I always consider myself a student, and every project, every day, I'm taking something away and thinking about, oh, that's interesting. Look at how I just checked that box today.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Brandon Scott is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
Is there a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new character?
I'd like to say that I'm trying to build, say, a system to where I feel confident that if I check these boxes, that will set me up for success. But I find with each project, it just changes. I'm the type of person who, if I'm allowed to out myself, I stress over every project. I worry. I have a lot of anxiety. I think that I have a lot of imposter syndrome. I come there and I think they've made a mistake. So I'd say that's my process. You know what I mean? First is dealing with myself. It's dealing with getting over those fears, getting over that stress, and the feeling of there's a right way to do something. And so I'd say once I'm past that, and the thing that helps me, I mean, it comes in and out. I wouldn't say it just immediately goes away, but the thing that helps me is just a lot of curiosity and exploration. So the more time I have with something, I love it because I am looking for some kernel or texture that moves me. And sometimes that's a long search. It could be being like a geek and just doing some like internet research, but usually I find one thing is if I can talk to someone who actually, especially like if it's an occupation or if it's someone who I feel like this reminds me of, just to kind of talk to them to get some kernel, that's outside of my own Brandon world that just makes me say, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that. And then from there, like I said, there's not really a process. It's just sometimes something moves me. It could be a piece of music. It could be something that someone said. It could be just the way that their energy is. And then from there, that's usually, I'd say, my launch pad to then just daydream and continue to read and continue to explore. And I'm very much like, I studied at Lee Strasberg, the Theater Institute. I went to college here in New York. And I think there are a lot of the method sometimes, that whole method, there's a lot of backlash against it, and I still don't understand it. I wouldn't say I necessarily like use it, but I do know that one thing I really appreciated about it was trying to find these worlds within yourself, but then also find how you're different from these worlds. And so I find myself doing a mix of going back and forth between where is this in me? Where is this not like me? Where is this in me? Where is this not like me? And that struggle going back and forth kind of then eventually reveals something that feels authentic to me, but also different from me, if that makes sense. So again, I'm still, my process is evolving. And I find with each project, I learn something new. Each project, I learn a new challenge, something that I want to kind of figure out so I can, because at the end of the day, I really do, in addition to getting past my own fears and anxiety, I think it's to get to the other side of just confidence and trust. Because when I find whatever it takes, and everyone's path is different. It's so interesting how some folks, I have some friends who just can walk in there and they just know that they're good at knowing that, they're the person for the job and they're ready to play. I am still building my way towards that. But once I find that I have that confidence in who the character is, I have that confidence in myself, then I feel like I can create intimacy also with the people around me, because because when you create that intimacy with this, whether it's with a director, that trust, or with your everyone else who's you're working with, even from like the camera department, when then something magical happens, you know, and I feel like all the armor that maybe I, unbeknownst to myself, bring because I'm trying not to show that I'm like, I'm stressing about this, it goes away, and I'm able to just play. I'm able to be vulnerable. I'm able to have fun. I'm able to risk. And because at the end of the day, this is where I definitely am in my process. I'm trying to bring my playful child out more, and my instincts more than the critical voice that sometimes comes in. It's like, didn't you, that moment was interesting. Okay, what are you doing there? You know, it's just like, oh, that was fun. That was different. That was, this is, you know, let those voices come in more. So that's my long-winded answer to your initial question.
We like long winds here. Okay.
Long winds are good. They take you far.
I heard you say, speaking of this, that you are that actor that wants to know everybody's name on the set.
Yeah, try.
And that's what you were just saying. So that makes, from what I'm gathering, what you're saying is just that simple process of kind of getting to know everyone is setting a playground for yourself. Because if you're having that connection to people, then that's getting you maybe a little bit closer to being able to confidently be a child and be safe.
Safe.
Yeah. Right? There's something about that as a maybe even an instinctual instinct. I mean, instinctual instinct. That's good.
But I know what you're saying.
See why I edit? I have to edit. You can't leave that.
No, you gotta keep instinctual instinct.
I mean, as opposed to other instincts.
You know. I like it. I like it. It's a real it's a thought. It's
I guess what I mean is like you're almost unconsciously having to wanting to at least set that tone of let's get everyone not to be strangers, so I can set the ground for myself, right?
Yeah, I agree. Because also I want to work with people I love, people I like, and the safety part I think is maybe selfishly a part of it, you know, because like the more that we feel comfortable, then like, yes, I think I'll be able to do better work. But also I think more so, just I haven't even thought of it like that, but more so it's just I like people. I'm very curious about people. Yeah. If we're going to work together, I want to know who you are. I'd love to learn about, you know, you just tell me something I don't know more than just, oh, you're that guy back there. So I try, but also this is interesting because I know that when I was guest starring on shows or I was coming on shows, the people who did that helped me so much. It made me just feel so much more at ease, so much more welcome, because sometimes if you're a series regular or whatnot, it's like, I don't know what everyone's school experience was, but it's like the first day of school, you're at lunch, you're like, you don't know anyone. And even as you continue through the process, you could be on a show for a while. I still think that it can still feel like that. And there are people who, as a production go on, still feel that. Yeah. And so as much as possible, I try to just, for myself, meet everyone. But I can think of like, when I was on This Is Us, Milo, he did such a wonderful job of really making everyone feel at home and making me feel at home and a part of it, and that, you know, a part of the family. Yeah. And I spoke to him about it, and he was like, yeah, I learned that from Will Smith. And so it's just passes down. And so I hope that like I would love to be able to continue that.
And what about what you need from a director in these like going on what we're talking about here, setting the tone of the set, setting the environment up, talking about it not only just as somebody who steps in and does some guest starring roles and like you're saying, having to deal with things for only one day or so. But even when you've been on something for a while and different directors come in, talk about those experiences and what you felt like you needed from this person, the captain of the ship.
That's interesting. You know, I love a director who, especially when new directors are coming on, who come and ask questions of the actors or people who have maybe been, especially if you're later in the season, who've been doing it, because then I automatically build a sense of, okay, you're curious about what I've been doing more than just your ideas that you're coming to. And I feel like collaboration is more possible. 'Cause I've also, you know, and what's weird about this business in my experience is, for myself, again, I want to play. And I find that sometimes where you are, I'm going to just say in the hierarchy, let's say that. There's a sense of a director might allow you to play more because there's more trust there. But then sometimes, you know, I've been on shows where I'm like, I feel like I know my character really well. And I'm, you know, we're like 6 episodes in and a new director comes in and I'm going to try something. And then they're kind of like a bit discouraging of trying something. But then it's interesting if you're a series, and maybe it's just series to series, but sometimes when you're a series regular, I feel like there have been times I've done the exact same thing in terms of like trying something, and maybe because there's a bit more clout to a series regular on a show or whatnot, then they're like, oh yeah, keep, you know, and it can be. So I guess from a director, I want to feel collaborative. I wanted to feel like you're curious in what I'm bringing beyond just what's on the page, because as I've already talked about, I like obsess over these things, and like I have ideas, and they might not be right, but I would love to, and there's no right and wrong, but it might not work, but I would love to just like try it and show or discuss it and collaborate before forming to maybe what a director sees. And that's also a me thing. I'm discovering more of like my personal power, being able to articulate that and being able to also take the chance to kind of just try things. So I'd say those are the things that I love when, again, that trust is there. There's a collaborative energy there. There's a back and forth. And especially like when a director's like, hey, let's just do one more and one more for you. You know, it's like, okay, great. Then I know we're playing, because also a lot of times I've done shows, and more, maybe I'm trusting that we're all just trying to figure out what it is. Again, we're shooting the arrow, but we're hoping that it lands in some beautiful bullseye. And sometimes you don't know until you know. So sometimes, especially for a new series, everyone's trying to figure out the tone. Everyone's trying to figure out what it is. So the more we can put in the can, the more that they have to play with. Because the past couple of shows I've been doing, it's been this beautiful mix of dramedy, where it's like, this could be kind of light and funny, or this could be really like heartfelt. And I love being able to play within that whole thing to kind of figure out, just to give so many different options. Because at the end of the day, also the editor is going to go, they're going to go and they're going to tell a story. That's right. And I feel better about my job if, again, I'm still playing, I'm taking risks, I'm taking chances. And because more and more I'm finding some of those things, those mistakes, I say that in quotations, are ending up in the projects. That's so interesting. And that's so much fun, because and that helps me to build trust that, okay, I do know this character. I am bringing something a little that's definitely uniquely mine to this project. Those are the ones that feel really good.
And it just spells out that what they're looking for when they're sitting down editing is this life, like happening on the screen. And sometimes it's and like when they're building this thing, like you're saying, it's so interesting what you're talking about. I had never thought about this before. It's even like that with this. We'll get to the show, but Girls on the Bus, which you don't know yet what it is quite. Like it could really be a real out and out comedy kind of thing, light thing, but it could also have these real serious dramatic things going on in it. And if you had everyone in the early stages giving lots of different variations on choices, then you have stuff to play with there and create it, because we've seen shows change tone from the beginning. Like you'll love a show, you'll catch on to a show and you'll go back to the beginning. It has a whole different tone in the beginning.
Figuring it out.
And then they finally figured it out eventually. But isn't it true that being able to have the permission to express ideas, it ignites something in the actor that is then used and can be used like energy throughout the whole, not just the day, but their whole time doing the project.
Yeah.
Why is this so hard to learn this from the people that are at the helm? I don't get this part.
I think because I don't know, as I'm not a director, or even it could be the director or the showrunner, or I don't know that side. I feel, especially in television, I mean, probably in film also, more and more I hear about how many cooks are in the kitchen. A lot of people probably have ideas. And at the end of the day, though, there's so much to be gained from, even if they don't like, I'm going to say a director, like or doesn't like, or like they're like, I don't think that works. But just hearing, I think it's almost like couples therapy. Like, you want to be heard.
Yeah.
You want to have some sense of influence, whether that's over the project or your partner, or just like I'm bringing something and I feel like it's being heard. And even if I don't get what I want, I feel like though it's being considered, and it's maybe changing your perspective some way. So that's the influence, and just that collaboration and being able to navigate that well, or directors who can do that are just, it just again breeds a really exciting energy amongst everyone. Right. And but I've also had directors who they're stuck in, they see it a certain way, and again, hey, maybe the project is, they know what they want so much, and that they get what they want, and this I don't think that necessarily makes a more successful or a project or whatnot, but in my experience it's just not as fun for me. But sometimes for myself I have to be able to navigate that, but also not take it personally, because I think early on it diminished my power for myself, to where I was like, oh, I'm not gonna even say anything, because like I feel like they're not gonna even listen to it. So I think everyone's on their own journey with that, but for myself, like personal power is something that I'm really excited about, and also not taking personally if I like pitch something, like pitch a joke or pitch like a moment or whatnot. Even and I learned this from also so many other actors. I didn't know that other actors would go and say, hey, I have a question about this. That's the other thing, asking questions, not feeling stupid about asking questions, which is something that me, as like Mr. A student who wanted to seem like they had everything together, was sometimes nervous about, can we change this? Or I had a question about this. And what's the word? Everyone would always say, what's the worst they're going to say? No. Yeah. But for some reason, no to me meant so many other things. And so I had to change my relationship with that, and trust that, again, everyone wants the best for the project. They want to have a good time or whatnot, and just trust that, you got to just jump in there, ask questions. You'll never know until you do ask it. And there's so many folks who are really good at that, creating that energy. And that's again something that more and more I get excited about. And sometimes I learned that has to start early on.
Yeah.
Like if I'll go and I'll again, by meeting everyone, whether it's a showrunner or whatnot, I'll just be like, hey, if you ever want to chat, you want to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and taking people up on their offer, they'll say, oh, well, yeah, if you want to grab coffee or if you want to this or that. And before I'd be like, oh, okay. That means that I gotta defend and I shouldn't say defend, but I gotta I gotta talk about my ideas. I gotta be able to like really articulate them, because sometimes I speak in draft and I'm like, I gotta know X, Y, and Z before I go into. Now I'm like, fuck it. Like, let's just meet. Let's check each other out. Let's get each other's energies and each other's opinions. Let's throw some stuff against the board.
Yeah. And
then it just already just builds so much. I keep going back to trust and intimacy. Yeah. And it just, it makes it such a better work environment.
But that just helps everything. It helps the actor feel empowered. Then they create better. They get you what you want faster. Easier, like, you know what I mean? It just makes all sense.
You find shorthand. You find shorthand with the actor. You're able to kind of just
wouldn't you want to know how an actor works? Because every actor works differently. Wouldn't you want to sit down and get a handle on that by over coffee a little bit?
Yeah,
and it'll make things easier. This is what I just don't get. I don't understand why that's such a weird thing. And actors need to, obviously they need to be courageous enough to speak up, but
it can be intimidating though.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that's what I was just going to say. The people running the set need to make that not intimidating. That's it.
Maybe we're all just scared.
I
mean, more and more I'm learning, or maybe it's more and more I'm learning. Everyone's got their shit, and
I think it's been a many years of this way of working.
Yeah.
That is hierarchies, as you're saying, and roles of the actor has to come in and just do what the director says, stuff like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's called director. It's not called dictator or even a nicer word. It's not even called leader. You know what I mean? It's called director, and it's about direction. It's about not instructor. It's not instructor.
This is just making me think. I can't come mostly from the theater.
Yeah.
And where it is, there's a lot of exploration, a lot of collaboration, and I hunger for sets to feel like that. But then also, I don't know what goes into the process. Directing seems like such a stressful job, because I love working with actors, but you're juggling so many other departments and things like that. And so sometimes I feel that, unfortunately, I don't know, where a director's, what they put importance over kind of shows or maybe moves them towards, okay, I know I don't have to worry about the actors because I'm going to basically tell them what to do. Yeah. I'm going to give them line readings. I'm going to basically tell them. And it's interesting. Sometimes you have direct, and I don't fault it. Sometimes they come in and they're like, okay, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking you sit here, and I was thinking then you cross over there because we got to get the shot this way. And sometimes you just got to do that, Right. But then sometimes, again, the actor has to step up and say, I know, but this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Or I would never sit there.
I would never sit there. And this is a me thing, but I'm sure other people can relate to this, of not wanting to make waves or feeling like, am I going to cause a problem?
Yeah.
And, but that's something that, again, that personal power, and just hopefully, again, if that relationship has already been established early on, where you feel like we can chat about these things and just pitch things, then those things get pitched and resolved a lot quicker than maybe, again, for myself, it being something where I'm like, I'm just like sheep right now. And that never, for me, that doesn't feel good when I go home and I'm like, there's this instinctual instinct I had. and I didn't ask about it. I didn't follow on it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And then what do? You say to yourself, somebody will say, well, at least you didn't create waves and that could have led to ramifications. Oh, so you could put your head down at night saying you didn't make, but how many different times can you do that? And then you see the product and it isn't as good as it can be. You know what I mean? Then you got to just be like, okay, I have to find a way to speak up.
Yeah.
You know, because it's actually better to have some ramifications sometimes than to be producing the kind of stuff that this person was fine with because they moved on, but it isn't, it's not as good as it could be.
Yeah. This whole world is, I'm still, again, learning. I still feel, even though I look back at all the work I've done and how long I've been just in it, I still feel very new. Yeah. But I like that because I stay curious and, I'm always hungry to learn more and feel more confident.
Yeah. Is there anything that has happened that you can pinpoint as a kind of turning point just for your work, not in terms of your success, not in terms of getting you more work or anything, just in terms of you going from one stage of this work to another? Was it something happening on some job, some co-star that you learn something from that shift your whole paradigm, or just something maybe that you shed, a habit that you shed, or an old way of working that you realized you don't need anymore, that shifted things and put you into another stage? Can you think of anything like that?
Yeah, a few pop up. The first one that pops up is working with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini and Dead to Me. Watching how playful they are, witnessing that. Also witnessing Christina Applegate has been doing this. She knows it.
Yeah.
And seeing how she would break down a scene. She'd come and say, hey, can we just like look at this real quick? And we'd sit down and we'd read it just around her trailer or whatnot. And even Liz Feldman, the showrunner, would come over and just to see how the things she wanted to change, the questions she asked, is just so smart and all the time. And maybe also just because, she just has this innate ability. She just knows what she's doing. And then also the playfulness that they would have. They would do takes where they did what was on the page. And then they would just do takes where they were just, I was like, I have no idea where we are right now. You were on the ride. You were on the ride. And it was amazing to watch their freedom within the sandbox.
Yeah.
And that made me say, oh my goodness, I want to have freedom like that. Even if it is just, because I think for the longest time, and I'm still working on this, I was a very technical actor, and I'm trying to get more creative, if that makes sense, more in the space. It's so interesting. When I started, I'd say I was definitely more creative because I was living the part before they said action. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I started thinking about, I think through certain jobs, learning about the technical things like, oh, I got to kind of cheat towards camera a bit more. I got to find my light. I got to, all those things that you don't think about until you see it and you're like, or you hear them say it, because the director would be like, just look this way a bit more. But it didn't really register.
Yeah. And
then you see it and you're like, oh, that's what they meant. So I'm constantly trying to I was adjusting that part of my craft, let's say. And then, but then once I feel like I figured some of that stuff out, and it goes back and forth still, then I was going back to a creative place and just seeing how those two were so playful and creative, just that made me want to be that way, or just discover that within me. another one I can think of is I did a play with Bryan Cranston, and a play watching him just dissect a part and ask so many questions. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, you would think, I don't know why I put people on pedestals, you know, and probably like, I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna, and from day one, he was on it. But then to see throughout the process, he stayed asking questions, stayed curious, stayed, just, he, I guess my idea of folks at that level is they know everything already, you know?
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal to watch him just craft a role. And again, like, that was one thing where I said, oh, okay, that's where I can go deeper. I can ask those tough questions. That also got me out of the thing of sometimes I would just ask questions amongst myself, but like I wouldn't necessarily go and ask the questions of, say, the writers or the showrunner or the director, because I don't know, maybe it was about the waves, not wanting to create waves for some reason, even though I don't know why that would create a wave. But it's also, I think I already am feeling this imposter syndrome. Maybe the idea of asking questions would feel more like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
You're giving yourself up.
Yeah. But again, once I started letting all that go, it's just been a more amazing experience. So those are the ones that I would say really started to transform how I just started to approach. I don't know if it's about approaching the work, but just approaching the environment of when you're on, you know, in a project.
It's weird in the beginning that you were saying how you still, you know, the first step is this worry or this terror and even this imposter syndrome of like, oh, they made a mistake here. I mean, after a while, when you keep booking, how could that not go away?
I don't know. I mean, one of my friends was like, I think that's your process.
Yeah.
Your process is to stress about things because that lights a fire underneath you to make sure that, like, as much as possible, you're prepared, I guess. But and I'm learning to let go of that worry and stress, but still, or I think I am. Honestly, though, the first couple of, and some of this may have come from because you hear about stories of people getting fired from jobs. Mm-hmm. That's freaking fear. I'm very fear-based. But then also, I've gotten jobs where this was like the job, you know, and been 2 weeks into it and the whole production gets canceled. You know, just things out of your control happen. And so I think sometimes I go into everything with a bit of, you never know what's going to happen. I'm trying to bring in, just find a way to enjoy this moment, even if it is 2 weeks and they shut down the production, because you can carry that stuff. It makes it, this business is already crazy enough, but when you carry the like rejection, or you carry the valleys, or the, you know, all that stuff with you, I think it kind of, for myself, it kind of can really affect me, but also affect how I go into a room, how I go into any project. And so, yeah, I'm still in that place of where once we've shot a couple of days, I'm like, okay, now I can relax. At least they, you know, unless they're gonna CGI me the rest of it, or AI me, I'm like, okay.
Which is the next fear. That's the next fear.
Jeez.
You can have something else to worry about now.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
Do you have now a tried and true way you approach the audition process now?
Little things that I'm trying to do more of is the second I get, because I know I want to have time to explore, and sometimes you have 2 days, 3 days to put it together. Thanks to the new contract, I think it's at least 2 days. Yeah. So before it was 1 day.
Yeah.
And my go-to was just to memorize, because I know that if I feel confident and I don't need the page, then I'm going to be able to play more.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to get there. So I try, the first thing I do whenever I get that audition is to read it right then and there multiple times, just because I know that even if I'm at dinner or whatnot, I'll say, excuse me, let me just read this real quick.
Yeah.
Because I think on a subconscious level, things start happening, and I need that process to start. So that would be one of the things that I do. And then from there, it's just a lot of, exploring. I try to tell myself this person exists or has existed in time. That's something that helps me to ground it. And then just through the audition process, awaken the playful child, because I think there was a period where it doesn't matter what the role is. It doesn't matter if have to have some crazy brain surgery. There's a playful child in there. You know what I mean? And I think for the longest time, maybe because it was from Strasbourg, and I was like, I'm going to bring all my emotions into this. I'm going to bring the weight of it in there. More and more, I'm trusting that that's already there. There's so much, especially something like that, that's going to be there. And if I connect to the material. So I still, through that, I try to be playful and have fun, even amidst, like, even if it's like a really dark, crazy audition. So I'd say those are the things that help me enjoy the audition process. And again, to not think of it as what you hear a lot of actors talk about. It's not about necessarily booking this role. It's about the opportunity to just be this character for this moment. And beyond that, there's nothing out of your control. So I might as well have fun with the whole process. And every character we play, every story we're a part of, there's a beautiful thing to take from it. Even if it doesn't work out when an audition or a project comes along, then I'm like, oh, wow, it's so serendipitous that this came into my life at this moment. Because I think even for myself, if I kind of, when I'm out of my very critical analytical brain and I'm more in my, like, there's magic out there, that there's this mystic shit going on all the time, then it makes, whenever a project comes to me, I'll ask, like, why is this here now? Oh, that's interesting. And sometimes that's the thing that makes me more excited about it. Even if it is just some, I don't know, random,
That's almost like a creation of energy in itself, thinking that. It's almost like getting the gears going right off the bat for yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, if it goes away, you can just say, oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that nice thing just went away? And that was meant to go away, I guess.
Yeah, and I need these things, because I feel, and I know a lot of my friends, we deal with the, I think in a business like this where you're constantly putting yourself out there, if you deal with all the rejection, and then also sometimes, again, you feel like, I put so much into this and they didn't even respond. Yeah. And then it's like, why am I going to put this into the next one if they're just going to, and it's just kind of those lens changes. And so these are ways it's like changing the lens around it all. It just keeps me healthier, keeps me more excited, keeps me showing up and more present, and just not, I guess, resentful and bitter. And because I've been there, and it's in there. Too. It can come out. It can come out. But yeah, it's been a fun ride, and community is so important. My goodness. And this is why I love talking about this, but I love also podcasts like this, because it can be a very lonely industry too. And there, I feel like there are a lot of gatekeepers, and there are a lot of folks who sometimes are like, well, this works for me, so I'm going to keep this to myself because I don't want anyone else to know it. And I've always come with a sense of community, a sense of sharing, a sense of all ships rise together. Like, and so like when I hear other stories, when I hear other approaches, when I hear other fears and anxiety, number one, it makes me feel less lonely, and number two, it just also excites me because it gives me more tools. I'm like, I've never thought of it like that. Oh, maybe I can. It's like therapy for everyone, artists, directors, because sometimes you hear the most obvious thing that you think, well, why have I not thought of it that way? Why have I not come across that? And again, that's the thing that helps you, something in you shift to just kind of take a couple of steps forward with confidence.
Yes. Talk about the girls on the bus and what this role is for you. This feels like it's going to be a hit show. But the only thing is like anything with politics right now is so scary. Like, we're so scared of this world.
Yes. So why more of it?
But people are fascinated by politics. And I think this is approaching it in the right way, where it's light and it feels like it's something that isn't now at this exact moment, but not so long ago that it's like a past thing, right? That's what it feels like. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Girls on the Bus toes that line very well. I love politics. It just checked so many boxes for me because I've been fascinated by politics. Like you said, we're fascinated by it. Also, I thought the writing in this script is fun, is quick. I was a big West Wing fan. But then it also has the lightness, the fun of like Sex and the City. But this role for me, it checked those boxes, but also it was a bit of a dream job because the people involved and where I was in terms of my evolving like approach to projects. Again, talking about playful child, this role allowed me to just really be so playful, which I was looking for, but also so vulnerable. And that's what that character is, Loafers, that's my character. I mean, right there, you have a character named Loafers. And I just cracked up at that. Okay, that's the name, and that's thanks to Amy's writing. Her writing is so great. But starting there, and then just the relationships, because character-driven relationships are the stuff that I love, and I think that the heart of this show, it is about the friendships and the relationships. And already when I was auditioning for Loafers, just hearing that or reading that he's on the campaign trail. He's a press secretary for the Democratic frontrunner, and he's on the campaign trail with his ex, who's a journalist. And he would say that they're exes, but she probably would not use that label. So already you have that conflict there. And then he has risen amongst the ranks to become a press secretary when last cycle he was a bag man. So there's this delicious excitement in the relationship about, and I think a lot of people can relate to running into an ex after you've achieved this status. And it's an ex who burned you, who ghosted you, and you have all the power now. And so just from the breakdown, I was just into exploring this relationship, and I was like, how is this gonna work? How are they gonna resolve their differences? But then also, again, not making it too dark, because I think past Brandon would have come in leading with a lot of pissiness, with a lot of assholeness. Again, the me that was like, okay, now I'm gonna bring my past ex into this relationship, and just really only explore that side of it. But there's so much fun and deliciousness to the tone of this show, and And again, I think I was in a playful moment, so it was easier to kind of see, let me not fall into the trap of making it too heavy. Because you could see it. You could see the character being like that.
Yeah.
But
that's what they probably responded to then, the nuance of that, right? That you're bringing that aspect into it.
Because I think we all wear, I mean, there's a mask, you know? And I love finding the mask of a character, but then knowing also what the core of the character is, and then the internal struggle, figuring all that out. That just makes it so much more fun to exist in a character's world.
Right. And what do you do when you have something like this where you already have all, like you're saying, I have all this past that's important with this person? Do you go off and try to build that backstory with that person together so you're on the same page? Do you talk to the writer about that?
Yeah, more and more I'm learning for myself, like we talked about all the collaborative things. Yes, I will make an opportunity or present opportunities to say, or pit, what's the word I'm looking for? I will try to create an opportunity for us to create some type of connection before we start shooting. Doesn't always work, you know. This one, it was so last minute that we pretty much had to, for Melissa Benoist, who plays Sadie, and I had to figure that stuff out like day of, let's say. But I had met with the showrunner beforehand and talked to her a lot about it. So that was very helpful. And it just, again, just having these conversations for myself just made me say, okay, we're on the same page, or I haven't thought about that. Let me explore more of that. But with any project, I want to create some type of intimacy. So for this relationship particularly, it's just like, I think just trying to talk to someone and find some connection beyond what's there. And what's interesting about this one is where I think there was a crew member talking about an elven cloak, right? Just randomly. And both Melissa and I like looked up and we're like, what's this thing about an elven cloak, you know? And I don't admit to people, I was a Dungeons and Dragons player, you know what I mean? Like I was like a fantasy geek or whatnot. And I think for myself, the geek in me came out and the geek in her came out.
Interesting.
And then next thing you know, we're talking about like Dungeons, we're talking about video games, roleplay, you know, all this stuff. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we got a cool like connection, intimacy, energy right there. And then it was just like, you know, I think that just created some sense of like safety. Like, I was like, I know you. I know you.
It's funny how little it takes, right? Because you're kind of like, that's enough to almost like create that little fire going. And then you could use that. It could just be used. That's beautiful. When you think about what you actually want, because there's as an actor, I've had enough people on this show, people that, you know, have gotten all of the awards, who still talk about how they're worried about the next job. You know, like people who you wouldn't think would be worried, right? So under all of these
I can
worries and all of these things, when you think about, okay, Girls on the Bus, season 7.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
What does that do to you? Does that act as a warm blanket over you and make the worry go away? Or is there a tinge of 7 years on one show?
I love this group. I love this story. I love these characters. I, right now in this moment, would be honored if we got 7 seasons, because for so many reasons, that means that people are responding to the show.
Right.
People love it. Financially, that would be great. I'm not gonna. And I think that it would just be a fun playground to continue to play in. Now, before, I've been on some shows where I'm like 7 seasons. Geez. I don't know. I think as long as the scripts stay good.
Yeah.
Because I could see myself. Sometimes I get bored with projects, and not with projects, but like
a character,
and I'd be curious how far this could go over 7 seasons. But I don't think it doesn't stress me out at the moment, but I do know folks and have heard those stories of people, 3-4 seasons in, they're like,
Yeah.
going to the showrunner and being like, find a way to kill me off this show,
Yeah.
find a way to get me off. But so I think those would be champagne problems at the end of the day.
Yeah. Right.
And I do believe that, again, it'll be back to one of your questions about Girls on the Bus, about a political show. I personally love politics, but and the fascination with politics, I think, amongst the world right now is exciting. And I think the show does a really good job of being authentic but fictional.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you an escape, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, I think it works on you and
it's
maybe
relevant.
and it's very relevant and creates a lot of curiosity around these. It could be a catalyst for curiosity from young folks about, hey, I'm curious about journalism, or I actually want to get into politics. So these are things where I'm like, in this AI world, all this stuff that's coming around, if it's something that feels relevant and that is doing some good, then geez, sign me up. If we got to do 7 years of that to make people interested in civics, to bring that into schools, or then I'm like, sign me up, because I would love when there's just, the people are connected to it, but also there's this like greater thing that's happening from it.
A fulfillment on another level. Yeah.
Yeah. And as someone who I am, like you said, learning, I always consider myself a student. And every project, every day, I'm taking something away and thinking about, oh, that's interesting. Look at how I just checked that box today. And so I would imagine 7 years on a show, again, I've never been there, you are just hopefully sitting in some sense of ownership of a character, confidence about being on a set, being with people, confidence about your craft and your ability. I don't see myself, even though I'm curious about other projects.
Yeah.
I know myself, I probably would still continue to, hopefully 7 years in, be curious about this character, this story, and find some way. And hopefully maybe by season 7, if I'm like, there's something that we haven't explored, I also have built the confidence and the relationships to pitch, like, what if we went into, like, I think we're missing an opportunity here, So I think there's only room to grow from something like this over that period of time.
Brandon Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is awesome. I love what you're doing here.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.